Welcome everyone. Thank you for coming today. Allow me to explain to you what Race Against the Machine is before we begin. Race Against, Race Against the Machine takes place in a very surreal version of our world. A similar world, but not quite like the one you know now. But you're not alone here. You're intruding on someone else's property, and he won't let you go with just a warning. So, you run for what seems to be a never-ending road that presents itself with many doors, taking you to many unique rooms. However, with each visit, it feels different, even if you've been there before, with subtle nuances and messages pertaining to the struggles a young adult may have. Between each room, you, the player, must climb what feels like an uphill battle for your freedom from this world, and you must act before it's too late. I'm Spencer Young, and I'm the team lead.
I'm Chen Ko, and I'm the architecture lead.
I'm Andy Echeverria, and I'm the documentation lead.
I'm Brandon Arevalo, the communication lead.
I'm Timmy Chau, the user experience lead.
And I present to you the Race Against the Machine. Here is a first look of unedited early gameplay footage. So the player starts off in this world already as it is. First, we're given basic instructions on how to sort of control the player with very simple instructions. WASD to move around and left click to look. So we can see that we run into a barricade already, so we're forced to go inside the door already. All right, so now we're actually put inside a training room, so the player can familiarize themselves with the controls and sort of feel comfortable before they can move on and actually play the game. So here, the player just quickly messing around with the controls before they go. All right, so now the game has officially begun. You are presented with your first cop, and let's see how he behaves. As you can see, not too friendly. So, all right, as we're being cornered into another door, we're forced to go in. So you can notice that upon entry, the room has immediately sort of changed the environment. This is, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So the player has to sort of figure out, what do I need to do in this room to get out? And there will be sort of subtle messages on how to get out of here. And again, we will talk more about that later. So now the player has finished the objectives of the room and he is free to exit. So now the player has to go on to the next room. And now we have a completely different room. And now the player is actually shrunk down to size a little bit. So as you can see, the player is trying to climb upon these what seems to be school objects, chairs, desks, and he's collecting what seems to be books on top of these desks. Right, so the player has now collected all the books and the door is open itself, and the player can move on. And to keep this demo short, we sort of we set it so that it had less room. And this is the final, but that would come later. Okay, so what exactly is this game about? Well, the game takes four main elements shown here. On the top left, there's randomly generated conditions. There are many conditions that can affect a room that you go inside, and it can stack. There can be multiple different conditions, and they sort of just change the way how the game plays. Next is randomly generated rooms. On the top right, you can see that in the demo, there was a different room. This could have been one of the 6 to 8 different rooms that we have, and it's randomly generated, so you never know what's behind that door. Next, On the bottom left, you'll see a it's procedurally generating alleyway. Of course, this is also procedural, so it'll be different every time you play it. And lastly, we have the enemy NPC that chases the player that sort of forces you inside these doors. Thus, I bring Andy to talk a little bit more about what these rooms and the messages they have for the player.
So the player is forced to explore the unknown. Behind every door lies a surreal space that the player must explore and face the challenge within it. The player will be trapped in the room until they prove themselves by solving a puzzle to unlock the room to continue. For example, here, this is the cat room. In this uncanny room, you learn that sometimes you have to find the right person to get you higher in life. In this case, it really isn't a person, but a feline. Here, your goal is to find a specific cat that will give you a clue that will lead you down the path to success. In the following room, the illusion room, the player must expand their knowledge in order to beat it. The system that is in place has made it difficult for the player to succeed, but it is not impossible. Knowledge is scattered throughout the room in the form of books. The more books the player collects, the more they expand their knowledge and see things from a different perspective. The video clip on the left shows the obstacle course that the player must beat. The higher they go, the more books will become available to them. The video clip on the right shows the books that the player will collect. After this challenge is completed, the door will unlock and the player will be able to move on to other challenges. The next room that is available is Home Sweet Home. In Home Sweet Home, challenges present themselves everywhere, even in the most obvious of places, such as our homes. In this room, the player must find a way to escape by deciphering a code that is hidden throughout the room. Searching for these clues is easy, but someone is always watching you, and they might act at any time without warning. These rooms test the player's ability to solve puzzles and push themselves to find solutions in order to surpass the barriers that the system has set in place. However, there is one more challenge that the player must constantly face, which Michael will explain.
Now, let's talk about what is the alleyway and the main enemy the player will face throughout the game. So what is the alleyway? Well, the alleyway is a randomly generated map with obstacles and different doors to explore with. The obstacle can be construction cones, fences, fire hydrants, and more. In order for the player to avoid the random obstacles, the player will have to move quickly and jump over certain obstacles. With the map being generated randomly, the player will never expect the same gameplay. In this game, Race Against the Machine, life is full of roadblocks and the player learns to work around it. The roadblocks are one thing, but there are bigger obstacles that the player should worry about, which are the cops that keep the player get down. The cops are unpredictable, often violent, and sometimes deadly. The player randomly encounters cops showing unpredictable behavior. The cops can be neutral or threatening, and more often than not, they hit or even kill the player without warning. In the beginning, the player has no means to fight back, so their only weapon is to run, but they can't run forever. Running doesn't seem to be the only option. Door seems to appear randomly throughout the map. Inside each door could be any room that Andy mentioned earlier. Now let's take a closer look to development's progress.
For those of you that are interested in the game development, here's a little glimpse of our development process and issues we came across along the way. This is our base of the game, so we decided to work on it first, on room and alley spawning. We looked for a way to how the player would go from room to room, and we decided from random generated floors and alleyways. Like many designs, it starts off with an idea and sketch on a piece of paper. Once we have a solid design, we discovered new challenges that we have to overcome. Here you can see the process of our alleyway and design and implementation as well. Although you can see 3 stages of the process, this took us various hours of work and research. For example, the first GIF shows us the early stage of the alleyway development. We were able to continuously spawn random floors to keep the player guessing. But we had a problem with performance issues. To solve this, we canceled the earliest floor spawning. Another issue that we came across was the player being able to see the edge of the floor. To fix this, we added a mist, not allowing the player to see through it. This would work perfectly with our game setting. On the second GIF, you can see how the room would spawn without overlapping on the current floor that we had available to the player. We also designed it dynamically for any size of the room to be spawned with. And on the third GIF, you could see how the room spawning and alleyway spawning came together, and we decided to add roadblocks to indicate to the player, hey, get into this room, finish it to progress to the game. Now for the actual room design. Here's a timeline of our rooms. One of our early designs could be bland and boring, but towards the end of the game, we made it more exciting and spiced things up with animation and sound effects. This adding a whole new level of difficulty, but we were up to the task. For instance, on the first image, you see one of our early sketches giving us an idea of the doors and rooms where everything should be placed. On the second image, we came across some development creating the walls, doors, and adding textures to the level, adding a new changed up ideas to the room. Still keeping the original design, but changing a little bit of concept here and there. And finally, the last GIF on the right, you can see by adding furniture and objects to the room, this would perfectly go along with this room. At this stage of the room, we could probably add animation, sound effects, and objective. Now that you have a little bit more understanding of our challenges we faced, Timmy will go over some programs we used over the course of this progress.
Creating a game requires a lot of resources. We used various programs in order to create our game. The main program that we use is called Unity. Some of you may be familiar with Unity, but for those who are not, Unity is a cross-platform game development program that has a ton of support for 3D development, which was perfect for our project. We also used other tools that played a big role in the development of our game. For example, when we needed to edit music or sound effects, we used a popular program called Audacity. For version control, we used Unity Collab, which was very helpful in keeping up to date with all of our changes. For communication, we used Discord, and as of recently, we started to use Zoom in order to host weekly meetings. Aside from those tools, we also use Google Drive and GitHub. For all the clips and pictures that you see in the presentation, we used OBS to record our gameplay footage and Photoshop to edit pictures that you see in the slides. For upcoming features, we plan on adding AI learning capabilities for the cop to add more difficulty to the game, adding more rooms with objectives for the player to interact and play with, more non-playable characters to help connect the story to the player even more, launching the game on Steam, and now I will hand it to Spencer.
I just want to give a special thanks to Megan Reynolds, who is a Blizzard representative that helped us early on in our development. They gave us a lot of very good advice on how to make our game fun. And the beta testers, students of TVF 2500, the course, they were the first to play our game and give us a lot of constructive feedback as well, and that we were able to sort of make our game a lot better based on that feedback. And Sylke Meyer, who is our liaison, who is also a representative of Cal State LA Institute for Interactive Arts, Research and Technology. She sort of helped us glue a lot of the story together. A lot of our ideas were sort of everywhere at first, but she really pieced it together for us. And our advisor, Dr. Kang, that made sure that we were always working on the game and we were always on time so that we could sort of finish this on time. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?